Hello and welcome. Hi, Henrik. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
It must be very early for you as well. Are you still on the East Coast?
I'm in Denmark, in Europe. That's not bad.
Okay, that's good. We feel. I don't feel as bad. Thanks for joining us.
Is the audio okay?
Yes, it works very well.
Okay.
We are only seeing half of your face, though, I have to say. So there you go. I think our colleagues are joining. They're all joining right now, so we're going to give it a few more moments. Hi, Simon. Thank you for joining us. Carol, I see Carol.
Hi, Alice. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Simon again. How are you today?
Good. Can you see me? I can't see myself.
I actually can see you, but I'm seeing you on the side. Is that what you intend to do?
Yeah, but I only see you on the side. I don't see the other participants. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you might need to make it into gallery. I think that's
all right.
That works. Thanks for joining us. And I think we have your presentation already, so it shouldn't be any problem. Hiya, Turo. Long time no see. How are you doing?
How are you? Well, good. It's
good.
Early morning here, but it's all good.
Thank you for joining us so early. Yes.
It's been a while.
Thanks for making the effort. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Arturo, qué bueno verte.
Igualmente. No, nice to see you
still
all.
missing you here, you know. Arturo is a former colleague in our team in the secretariat, so for us it's terrific to still have him around in the ecosystem.
Still around, and will be for quite a while for sure.
That's great. That's what we want to. So I'm seeing Carol and Martina joining us. Carolina and Martina joining us. I just have a very quick question to ask. Which one of you would be presenting on behalf of the Stentar? Hello, Carolina.
Hi.
How are you? Oh, hi, Martina.
Hi. We are organized to share this proposal. I think Carolina is going to present the 3-minute speech, and then we are going to talk both of us.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alice.
You're welcome. So I see that colleagues are all still joining us right now, but I think we can start. Maybe give it another minute for people to come in, and then we can start. And at the same time, please feel free to click on the gallery view so that you can see everyone. And if it works for you, whether you're speaking, delivering, or just participating, we welcome you to turn on your camera. It's always a bit hard, isn't it, for a virtual meeting like this to feel more lively. So if it's available, please feel free to do so. Isa, if you could please also check whether Eleanor is going to join us. Thank you. There she is, actually. Okay, I think we can start once we have our colleagues joining in now. So hello, everyone, and welcome to the June session of the SLOCAT Partners Café. My name is Alice Yu. I'm the Director of Policy Outreach and Strategic Communications at SLOCAT. So we're really happy that we have gathered a number of partners from our ecosystem today to facilitate synergies, alignment, peer learning, and matchmaking among our SLOCAT partners. And as you may know, the SLOCAT Strategic Development Plan for 2023 to 2026, adopted earlier this year, has provided a clear and coherent multi-annual horizon for our partnership. exploring and enabling potential collaborations, deepening our activities and strategic collaborations, and leveraging the partnerships shared and collective intelligence are more important than ever. It is with this spirit that we organize the Partners Café. I know we're all looking at each other through the screen on Zoom, but imagine that this is the fun Christmas, marketplace that with different vendors showing off their best merchandise and cuisines, or those show and tell activities at my son's school, where they show off their coolest toys and robots and favorite treasures with their classmates. So I know each of us have a lot to offer. I really do. And I hope that in the next hour, we can feel comfortable enough to share and interact with each other. So today's session format is very simple. We're going to have 7 short presentations by our partners. After every 2 to 3 presentations, the floor will be open for 5 minutes for group reactions, questions, and discussions. We would like to ask you to mute your microphone to avoid noises in the back, but feel free to keep your cameras open to make this virtual gathering more lively. We encourage all of you to leave your comments and feedback in the chat box as the presentation goes, or you can simply open your mic to ask questions when the floor is open. Here with us, I'll be introducing our speakers as we go, and also note that here with us is also colleagues from our secretariat. We have Marusha Kardama, our Secretary General, here with us, and also Chris Decky, our Director for Global Advocacy, and Angel and Carl, who is also supporting from the Secretariat, and Hayun and Isa as well. So all of us will be here to answer any questions that you might have when you are proposing any activities, or whether, any questions at all about the partnership as we go. So without further ado, today, we will start with the following order. We will have the first round of presentations from Mobilize Your City, Sustentar, and the Africa Transport Policy Program, SSATP. Then we will have a reaction time. The second round of presentations will be delivered by TRT and the Center of Excellence in Urban Transport from the CEFT Research and Development Foundation. After the second reaction time, we will have the last round delivered by Concito and the International Union of Railways, UIC. So I'm going to stop talking right now, and I would like to invite Eleanor, who is the Partnerships and Outreach Manager of Mobilize Your City, to kick off our segment. So Eleanor, hello. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having this, and we're really happy to be here today. So I have 3 minutes, as I understood, so I'll just jump right in. So for those who are not very familiar with us, Mobilize Your City is a partnership between the European Union and the governments of France and Germany. It was founded at COP21, and we bring together many partners that work together to support 70 cities and 15 countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, basically to help them transition to sustainable urban mobility. And we act through 4 main service areas. So the first one and the most important one is mobility planning. So we use the EU methodology to develop sustainable urban mobility plans, what we call SUMs, primarily implemented by AFD and GIZ. And then we do capacity development. We help develop tools and methodologies, but also trainings and actually training materials that are extracted from those trainings for anybody to be able to replicate them over the world. And then we do advocacy to encourage individuals and institutions to embrace and resource sustainable mobility. And then the last one is implementation support. And that's a new offer that we've developed a little bit more recently, as we have had the first sustainable urban mobility plans and national urban mobility policies being completed. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but you can see this slide on the screen that is showing that now, so we're like nearly 8 years into existence, and we're proud to see that the SUMs and the NUMs that I was talking about are effectively leveraging finance. So our donors have contributed about 40 million euros to support these SUMs and NUMs. And as you can see on this slide, from the first completed SUMs and NUMs, we've been able to identify over 22 billion euros in investment needs. Most of it is for public transport infrastructure, but also to build roads for vehicles or walking and cycling. And what you can see on that slide is that almost 1.5 billion euros have been secured for specific assets. And you can see how it's divided in the different kinds of investments for different types of projects. But this shows two things, is that first of all, we're good at leveraging finance, and this was kind of like the bet of Mobilize Your City originally. It was to see like how mobility planning could really help those cities to access finance. And because our partners are development banks, we're achieving this collaboration between financial and technical cooperation, which was really the intention and the whole purpose of Mobilize Your City by acting that way in the geographies in which we are. But it also shows that there is still a large implementation gap. And in particular, we have identified this implementation gap on 3 topics on which we want to offer extra support because they're key to transition to sustainable urban mobility. And these are strengthening mobility governance, reforming informal transport, and promoting active modes. So we have now 2 new projects that are coming up from AFD and the European Union to develop pilot projects on these topics and to do project preparation. But this is really this area where we're trying to develop now what we call implementation support, because we see that while it's relatively easy to find funding for large infrastructure projects, these 3 areas that I mentioned are a little bit harder to implement. And this is where we as a partnership can offer this extra support to make sure that they're not skipped. So we're having this discussion with our donors and implementing partners, but I wanted to use this opportunity to really ask you if you have any ideas that we could suggest also to them. So we're happy to hear from your own experiences on these 3 topics, governance, informal transport, and active modes. And obviously, as the EU is launching their global gateway strategy, the work that we're doing is becoming increasingly important for that. We're trying to work really in a Team Europe approach with the EU, Germany, and France. And so this is the way that we want to go forward now. So I'm happy to hear any suggestion that you have or answer any of the questions that you may have. I hope I managed to stay in 3 minutes.
It's very impressive, Eleanor. You're the best so far because you're the first. But really, really impressive. I'm sure we will have reaction very soon. So let's move on to the next presentation, because I feel like we might be talking similar issues and find different ways. So the next presentation will be delivered by Carolina from Sustentar. She is the Sustainable Mobility Director. Carolina.
Thank you, Alice. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Perfect. So basically, thank you, SLOCAT, for organizing this space. And I would like to use it for presenting some of a concept that we want to use as a framework for upcoming regional and global engagement events opportunities. As coordinators of the Transport Working Group in Let's LAC regional platform, we are collaborating also with another working group about resource efficiency. And with this, we want to promote an alternative integrated approach to transport. The resource efficiency concept, which means to generate more value with fewer resources, serves as a compelling argument to encourage economies to reduce their environmental impact while maintaining economic output. It is primarily focused on 3 resource types, which are energy, specifically fossil fuels, materials, and natural resources such as land. So importantly, this approach is not in opposition as the Avoid, Shift, Improve framework we all really promote with all the work that SLOCAT has been doing, and we also encourage that. Rather, it provides an additional entry point to pursue these same strategies, but also focusing on fostering economic development while minimizing that nature use, but mostly emissions and other negative impacts. To illustrate this approach, we aim to showcase experiences and best practices from the transport sector in all 3 areas. And for that, we envision 3 different opportunities to kind of bring this idea. The first one is planned to be taking place during the thematic sessions of the Let's LAC regional workshop, which is scheduled for August this year in Lima, Peru. This event will facilitate networking, connections, collaboration, and in-depth technical dialogue to identify needs, priorities, and emerging issues of the countries in the LAC region, transitioning towards resilient and low emission development. Subsequently, we have the opportunity to engage with this same theme during the LAC Climate Week in October, and finally for the COP28 in the United Arab Emirates, where we are currently now submitting a proposal for a side event. So at this stage, basically, we are interested in synergizing any efforts, co-organizing activities for these regional global events, and incorporating any common priority themes into the agenda. So please let us know if this resonates with you, this approach, and if you are interested in joining efforts for the upcoming engagement opportunities, we are happy to hear from you and take any ideas. So thank you, Alice.
Thank you so much, Carolina. Really great to see that you're connecting a regional activity to global processes, you know, with the things that are happening. And we definitely want to invite others, if you have any plans for the region, and also for, you know, plans for the LAC Regional Climate Week or COP. So, but we can save that for the reaction time, or you can share it in the chat box as we go. So now I would like to invite Simon, who is the Urban Mobility Pillar Lead from SSATP. Simon, please.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Simon, or Simon, if you can pronounce it in French. I'm a senior urban transport specialist with the World Bank. I'm based in the Abidjan office, and so I'm in charge of the sustainable urban mobility and accessibility pillar of SSATP. So SSATP is the Africa Transport Policy Program. It is a program that's financed by a multi-donor trust fund. You can see our main donors at the bottom of the screen here, and it's managed and executed by the World Bank. We have four main pillars, four main areas of intervention that you can see on the screen. I'm going to tell you a bit more today about the urban mobility one, which is the one I'm in charge of. Under that thematic area, we have three main avenues of intervention, I would say, which are very well aligned with the work that MYC is doing. Since our first area of focus is, I would say, governance and policy development. So for instance, we recently supported the creation of the African Association of Urban Mobility Authorities. Yeah, I forgot to mention, sorry, that as the name indicates, we're really focused on the African continent, obviously, and we have 42 member countries. So we used to be only focused on sub-Saharan Africa, but now we cover also, we have also Tunisia and Morocco as part of our members. So yes, so we are very active through that association that I just mentioned in helping urban areas sort of organize, manage urban mobility at the right scale and develop the capacities at an institutional level to do so. The second area of intervention under that urban mobility pillar is public transport improvement, but with a strong focus on paratransit professionalization. So by paratransit, we mean what's sometimes called also informal transport. So seeing how we can work with this existing form of transport, which is the dominant mode of transport in most of our African cities, to sort of improve it, take it from where it is, and instead of just trying to remove it, try to gradually professionalize, modernize it. And the third area, which is the transversal one, is capacity building and training, which is mostly implemented through a training program that we delivered jointly with colleagues from the World Bank that's called Leaders in Urban Transport Planning. We do at least 3 to 4 sessions every year on the African continent in English, in French, and in Portuguese. So I'll stop there, but I'd welcome any, if there's any interest for collaboration along those themes. We're always happy to partner on our activities, which are mostly knowledge products, so reports, working papers, some limited technical assistance, and capacity building activities. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Simone. And thank you so much for already making the connection to the presentations that we have just heard about. So now I would like to just open the floor for any reactions, any quick thoughts or questions that you may have for the presentations that you've just heard from Eleanor, Carolina, or Simone.
Can I ask one if nobody goes?
Yes.
Yes. No, my question is
ahead.
for Eleonore. So I know, I mean, we've been in discussion, SSATP and MYC. My understanding was that MYC was originally meant to be sort of an initiative with a, for a certain number of years. Are you now looking at sort of extending and becoming a permanent program, or what's your status?
So we're still basically the Mobilize Your City itself is really just a partnership. It doesn't have a legal status. We're not an entity. And so that means as long as our donors have projects, we continue to exist. And the moment there is no more reason for the donors to work together as partners, then there is no more Mobilize Your City. So that's, I guess, answering your question. Like, we're not per se like becoming a permanent program or so. We're existing as long as the partners work together.
Thank you.
So now I see hands being raised, and I'm sorry, I don't know which one goes first, but ladies first. So Carolina, and then followed by Arturo and Henrik. Thank you. And Patricia as well. She's also just.
Thank you. I actually think that Arturo or Henrik were before me.
Go ahead, Caro, don't worry.
So I did have a question for Eleanor too, because I think it's interesting. I knew already that Mobilize was working in some pilots for these kind of activities, like different modes. So I think we should connect at some point, because we are doing some work in researching different sources for piloting actions in Latin America. And I know it's not a global scope we are taking, but I don't know. It would be interesting to look at what Mobilize is doing and maybe see how that could synergize with other sources and other ways of piloting strategies.
Yeah, that would be great. Can you tell me just in which countries specifically?
We are doing like a research, like overall research for all sources of funding for piloting actions in mobility through all Latin American countries. So whatever we find, we are going to put it into a report. It's sort of a knowledge product we are preparing to put it out there.
Great, that sounds super interesting. Yeah, please share with us, and so we can explore that further. Because basically, just to tell you a little bit more, what we're doing right now is also like going through all the completed sums and nums and really trying to analyze these measures that have been selected in the sums or in the nums to see how we can like match that basically with potential donors who would be interested in doing pilot projects or helping these measures be implemented. So I think that would work really well with what you're doing.
That's great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. My question was for Simone. Is there any knowledge product that could work as a case study? For example, the governance part, and thinking about Central America, like trying to get something similar done in Central America, since it's fallen a little bit behind, I would say, in terms of urban mobility. And since it's not a large region, it doesn't get that much interest normally through like big funders, but it's something that it seems really interesting to see how it could be made through the the Central American integration system, that it could be something that could work through that scope. So I was wondering if you have something to present or to consult as a knowledge product about governance for Africa. Thanks.
Yes, we're just finishing up a study on public transport authorities on the African continent. So it's a comparative study in about 8 countries. where we look at basically what it takes to establish a good transport authority in terms of the mandates, the responsibilities, that are given to the institution, the legal foundation, giving it its authority, and then the resources, both financial and human. So keep an eye out or send me your email address, and I'll share the study when it's released in the next few weeks.
Thanks, will do.
If I may add, we're also working on a toolkit on governance. So if you're interested in that topic, also, I can keep you in the loop the moment it's published. It's expected to be published at the end of this year.
Great, thank you both.
Henrik, next. Sorry, you're muted.
I hope I'm unmuted now. Thank you. Amber,
yes, you're good.
Very interesting presentations. I think my question is mostly to Eleonora, perhaps also a bit to Simon. I was interested in whether you are able to do any work on monitoring and evaluating the implementation of some of the plans that you are engaged in. Is that part of your work program? There's kind of a lack often of available documentation and evaluation of the success of SUMPs and also the national urban mobility plans. So to what extent are you looking into the effects and the impacts of these plans as they're being implemented or after they have been implemented, or specific projects within them? Thank you.
So maybe I can start answering. So yes, we're trying to do that. And so far, I mean, because the plans, most of them are still being developed, we have been only able to look at like projected impacts, taking from the measures that have been selected. But then now more and more as the plans are starting to be implemented, then we're trying to monitor that to be able to first measure this leverage finance, as I was talking about, but also to be able to ultimately measure the impact that we actually have. So this is definitely an interest that we have, but it's only starting to get there, to that point.
Yeah, on SSATP side, it's not really something that we do, but I want to say that, the full implementation of a sustainable urban mobility plan for any given city is probably a matter of dozens of years, actually. I mean, when we look at the African continent, definitely. And in the same way, when can you say you have completed the implementation of a national urban mobility policy? So we see them more as like blueprints, they guide and they sort of trigger investment, and they're very useful in that respect. But it's hard to do a quantitative follow-up of them, apart from the financial dimension that Eleonora has provided.
Thank you, Henrik. So now Patricia and Marusha will follow.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. I more than a question, I want to add the benefits of the Mobilize Your City tools as a user, because since the 2018, I'm working from the Espacio, offering or supporting AFD, the French agency, and the implementation of the Euroclima Plus projects here in Latin America, supporting some pilot projects. And the tools that Mobilize Your City gave us are being very useful. All the methodology, for example, in the gender aspects, or in the each steps that a SAMP or a NAMP it has to be developed. It has been very useful for the consultancy firms, for example, to develop the whole process. And then all the templates that they have to how it has been the last document of a NAMP or a SAMP. It is very useful. So I just want to say that, Eleanor, that and actually we were 3 days now here in Bogota, working with Mobilize Your City and in the framework of the CODATU forum regional forum here in Bogota. And we were also making some very interesting meetings with the representatives of the or the focal points of the cities and the countries that we are working on here in Latin America, and also working to develop a new community of practice here in Latin America, in hand with the Mobilize Your City.
Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that.
Marusha, you next.
Quickly, because it's a delight to see you, all of you discussing and exchanging. This is the point of these meetings. But Elena, when I was listening to you talking about, informal transport, I know you've highlighted that topic as an area in which you are working. It just came to mind two things. Perhaps you're aware of them. The research seminar that yesterday BRF, so Volvo Research Education Foundations, held, which is about a global scan of data collection efforts around informal transport. I think it was an interesting workshop, an interesting forum from what I heard. We couldn't be there. We were launching, one of the modules of our global status report, but we could connect you with them. And then to put in your radar as well that our friends, Benji de la Peña and Andrea from, the Global Transportation, I need to get it right, the Global Network for Popular Transportation, they're called now, isn't it? And they are scanning or checking for an idea, a big idea. It's the creation of a global guarantee fund to renew popular transport across global south geographies, linking it as well with Samsung numbers. So I thought I would just put those two on your radar. If any interest, we can continue, of course, offline, and we can connect you to them. Not that you're not connected, of course, to BRF colleagues and to Benji and to Andrea, but just to put them in, in our collective radar here. I am not going to take any more time to react to all the others that I heard, which are great, so I'm just going to interject when I can think about SLOCAT Partner, who has put something in our radar lately. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Marusha. It's good that you remind me of those two. I'm sure that my colleagues are in contact with Benji, but I'm not sure about the first one. So maybe, if you can send us a little bit more info or a link, then we can follow that up. Thank you.
Excellent. I'm really glad to see all these interactions already happening. So right now we'll get into the second round of presentations. Let me invite Marco from TRT. He's the transport economist from the organization. Marco, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alice. Can you hear me well? I hope so.
Yes.
I had some issue before, but thank you very much for this opportunity. So yes, I'm glad to be here. My name is Marco Gatto, and I've been a consultant at TRT since 2017, working mainly on transport economics and sustainable mobility and policy evaluation. And it was really fascinating to hear all of you introduce your work and projects. As you may know, TRT is a very recent addition to the SLOCAT network. So I would like to take this opportunity to tell you a bit about who we are and what we do at TRT. And so as you can see, we are on the market for over 30 years. Our company is based in Milan, in Italy. We also have our office in Brussels. And we have more than 30 full-time employees working on transport consulting topics, ranging from transport economics, mobility planning, modeling, and policy evaluation. And so let's say that our company is pretty much specialized in consulting for the transport sector, but then our practices are quite diverse. And we collaborated with several partners in Italy and Europe. So we have a strong position in the European market, let's say. But now also joining SLOCAT, we hope that we look forward, and we hope that we can have much more opportunities to network and learn and collaborate with partners also at a global scale. And so actually, we were already lucky to do quite some interesting projects also outside the European Union. For example, in the Middle East, just to give you some examples of projects that can be relevant for you, all of you. We collaborated with the Jordanian government on the national transport plan and also the long-term plan for the public transport sector. Then more recently, also in Jordan, we are working with the World Bank for the design of the national electric mobility strategy. So in this case, our activities goes from analysis of options for charging infrastructure deployment to electric tariff pricing. And then we also use our models to simulate how the national vehicle fleet evolves over time. And we will also then, with the World Bank, formulate a road plan and investment pipeline for the implementation of the electric mobility strategy. So this is, for instance, in Jordan. Then in the past, we also worked in the Central Asian and the Caucasian region with the European Commission on a kind of regional cooperation project for the development of transport corridors in that region, and also facilitating capacity building and cooperation at the institutional level. Then more recently, we also started interesting works in Western Africa, which are more focused on freight and logistics in this case. For instance, with the World Bank, we are working on the national logistic plan in Ivory Coast, and another project in that area. It's related to the development of a road network between Abidjan and Lagos in Nigeria. So this was just to show you what we do at TRT and some examples of recent projects, especially at a global scale. Anyway, I'm very happy to answer any question you may have on our work, and also I hope this was kind of interesting and useful for you to understand and also find or look at opportunities to collaborate and have more fruitful discussion with us also now and in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marco. It's really excellent to have this opportunity, because no matter how hard we try to introduce, through press release or social media about you as a new SLOCAT partner, it's much better to listen to you speaking in person, about who you are and what you're doing recently. So we'll follow up with questions afterwards. And now I would like to invite Shalini, who is the center head for the Center of Excellence in Urban Transport from the CEPT University. Shalini.
Thank you, Alice. Thanks for this platform to be able to share one of the projects. I have one of the projects that I've listed here. But before that, I just want to give a brief introduction about the Center of Excellence in Urban Transport. This center was set up in 2009 with the support of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. We largely work in India in the areas of research and advisory work in sustainable mobility and also low carbon mobility. One of the key things that we try to do is that we try to work with cities, partnering with them to actually enable change on ground. In addition to that, we also have designed and delivered various capacity building programs for in-service government officials at state, local, as well as a national level. So, for example, the Leaders program is something that we have delivered in partnership with the World Bank as well as Government of India. So we have done 7 rounds of the Leaders program and several other customized programs depending on the requirements of the government agencies. So we work in the area of public transportation, strategic transport planning, land use transport integration, and more recently electric mobility. So this is just a glimpse of a kind of a project that we have done recently, essentially looking at intermediate public transport modes or informal public transport modes, like auto rickshaws, which are important modes of commute in big as well as small cities. In smaller cities, they become a very, very critical mode as they operate more like a proxy public transport system, operating services on major corridors, ferrying people within the city, getting them into the city from surrounding settlements. So the city was keen on moving towards low carbon mobility, and hence looking at transitioning these vehicles to electric vehicles. This essentially meant working in partnership with a range of stakeholder groups, including the Informal Public Transport Association and its driver members. Detailed analysis of the operational characteristics and also the financial analysis was done regarding the operations of conventional fuel vehicles. And it was found that, of course, it is feasible to transition to electric vehicles, which is not really happening because maybe, the information access was not very easy considering their socioeconomic backgrounds. We worked with the, local authorities in organizing a series of awareness workshops and to make the stakeholders of the driver communities aware about subsidies, regulatory support, which is their economic benefits, the operational characteristics, to be able to help them have test runs on the e-vehicles. And with this kind of intervention over the span of 1.5 years, the number of e-vehicles have increased from 15 to 100, also leading to increase in the incomes and also passengers, loving the smooth rides. So basically this experience, this particular project is an example of kind of working with the local authorities and helping transition some things which are there at the national level, this policy directives which are there, how do you transition them at a more local level, working with the local authorities, with the local stakeholders, so that we are able to have much faster transition to electric vehicles. And of course, this particular case has a potential of being replicated across other cities in India. But I would like to hear from, say, African context or any other in the global South, if any such similar experiences have been there. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalini. I really appreciate you bringing in this on-the-ground local perspectives and a regional perspective as well, to our discussion today. I'm sorry, but in conscious of time, I think I will go straight to Henrik and Juhyun first, and then we'll open the remaining time entirely for reaction, so that we, keep the momentum going. But keep your questions in your mind or in the chat box already. But now, actually, let me go straight to Henrik. He's a senior consultant for Concito. Henrik.
Thank you. And here's my slide. On the left hand side, you can see a little bit about Concito, who we are and what kind of areas we're working in. And on the right hand of the slide, there are some of the initiatives and projects we are working on, specifically in transport. And that's because we are a climate policy think tank working on all aspects related to climate change. We've been working mostly in the Danish and the Scandinavian context, but we are now very much eager to internationalize our efforts. And this is one of the reasons why we are joining in SLOCAT, and we are very much looking for potentials where we can assist or provide information or join projects with the knowledge that we have. My own background is as a transport researcher. I did many years of research in sustainable transport and especially indicators for transport. I did a little bit of work with UNESCAP in Asia on developing the Sustainable Urban Transport Index. But as I mentioned, as a think tank, we have been mostly focusing on experience so far in Europe and in Scandinavia. We are 65 people working here in different program areas, but in the mobility program, we are currently 4 people. And some students, but we also collaborate across very much with our cities team and with our international team. We're based in Copenhagen, but we are trying to establish now collaborations across borders as well. It's most of the work in mobility, which has some, I would say, potential international interest, is also about urban mobility planning, sustainable urban mobility planning. But from our point of view, it's also about very much about integrating the climate issue into planning. And we do have frameworks, we do have policies, but we sort of have to reinvent many of them in view of the climate crisis and in view of the climate objectives. And this hasn't really penetrated that far into existing decision-making and planning, even at local level or at national level. And this is where we see a purpose for some of our work to help make that transition and transform planning towards a climate-constrained world and a climate-constrained society. We have assisted all of the Danish municipalities in developing climate action plans. They have done that voluntarily without a national mandate, but now all of them are always complete, following the C40 cities framework, climate action planning framework. And we have sort of approved these plans. And meanwhile, we'll be giving them advice. I've been giving advice on the mobility side, but also on the other topics. So we have kind of a rich material of our whole country's municipalities having gone through a climate planning process where mobility is one of the items, one of the major items, but where there are also other topics. And we think there is some research potential in this kind of experience. And now with the coming implementation of these plans, that might be some interest in that kind of approach in other countries. We also did some studies about the national frameworks for local transport planning, comparing some countries. We actually found that our system here in Denmark is quite bad, because the national government is not really helping the cities. It's more like the opposite. They're putting obstacles in there. But we think we can pick from various other countries where they have more conducive programs where actually central government and local government work together to provide joint initiatives and joint investments. And we think that kind of work could also perhaps be repeated and be of interest elsewhere, not just to provide the frameworks, but to compare how they work in practice and to see to what extent national governments are actually supporting and promoting sustainable urban transport and climate-friendly transport. We also work some on urban freight. We have cities here in Denmark and in Scandinavia that are quite advanced in a way in decarbonizing urban freight, but still not there yet quite. But we were joining with the Transport Decarbonization Alliance and doing their guide on zero emission zones. That's another area. And finally, we have been working recently on national infrastructure policy. We did a review of the framework here in Denmark, and we actually critique it quite a lot because, again, we see that climate and climate goals are not really deeply integrated into transport infrastructure investment planning, neither at the political level, nor at the administrative level, and not even at the level of the tools and the assessment methods that are being used. So we are proposing a reform of that. We would like to do a little bit parallel studies with other national frameworks for infrastructure planning, to what extent is sustainability and climate actually integrated. We are very much inspired by work being done in Wales, where they have actually paused their entire infrastructure rollout to review all the projects there and are now revising their policy in a different direction, emphasizing sustainability and climate change over some of the more traditional transport investment decision-making criteria. And that's very interesting with that kind of work, because lots of money are rolling through infrastructure and lots of it is going to projects that are not necessarily that beneficial or obviously beneficial for the climate agenda or for sustainability. We also work on freight electrification, on tax reforms and aviation. And maybe small interesting point can be that we do have some funding to enter international collaborations, and we will also be able to fund if there would be experts in some of the other organizations that might have done some really interesting work. We could do a funded visit or a period of working together. We also have some funding to enter projects, so we will need less or sometimes perhaps zero funding to join analytic projects or research projects or other kinds of projects in some of the partner organizations. And we're sort of on the lookout for options to spend that money in a very good way that will help our own agenda, but also, of course, help other partner organizations in promoting their work and improving it and joining force in this way. So this is all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Henrik. So now I'll turn over the time to our last speaker today, and that is Ju-Hoon. She is the Senior Sustainability Advisor from UIC.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for this opportunity to be here. First of all, let me apologize for not having a slide. I came back from holidays yesterday, so I didn't have a chance to prepare that. But hopefully I'll be able to explain, and then I'll send over some materials as well, so that folks can read about it after when the materials are sent out. But essentially, I wanted to take this opportunity to first of all, just say a few words about UIC. For those of you who are not familiar, UIC is the International Union of Railways. We are an association of railway companies and railway operators and infrastructure managers around the world. And we work on developing technical solutions for the world of railways. And I work at the sustainability unit together with Lucy, who's also in the call. And here in our team, we are working on sustainability solutions, obviously, in many different areas, in energy and emissions, circular economy, air quality, biodiversity, noise and vibration, and probably some other that I'm forgetting at the moment. But besides the technical solutions in sustainability, we also lead the advocacy work of UIC, promoting rail as a climate solution. And as part of that work, we engage in many regional and international processes with a lot of our partners, including SLOCAT, UITP, WAC21, and so many others. And a lot of this advocacy work for us, it culminates at COP meetings. That's a very important moment for us. So for this meeting, I just wanted to share some of the activities that we're preparing for this year's COP28 in Dubai. And I should say, the work that we're preparing this year obviously started off as part of our work last year. Some of the key asks that we developed for the international community from the railway sector. And one of them was really focused on the policy commitments. So, this need to see more rail mentioned in long-term policy commitments, especially on NDCs. So this year we are focusing on looking through the NDCs for mentions of rail, looking at the targets that are bringing, the ambitions, the actions, the time frame, financing aspect, and really the plan is to take this deep dive in the analysis, and then based on some of the outcomes, make recommendations in light of this new cycle of NDCs that is upcoming. This NDC analysis is something that we hope to be working collaboratively with WAC21 and UITP. So looking into those recommendations, not only from the rail perspective, but also from public transport and from active travel. On the other hand, we also are working, the other key asks that we had as part of our work last year that we're developing on this year is a finance study. So looking into working together with some partners, namely the University of Birmingham, Alstom, and the World Bank, on identifying potential mechanisms to overcome the key barriers and challenges around green financing, especially in low and middle income countries. And so in trying to really capture the current state of railway projects, trying to understand, why is it that railway companies haven't been so successful in capturing some of the climate finance, and then looking into mapping some of the gaps that exist that have prevented this funding from flowing into the railway sector in these LMICs. And then finally, trying to convert some of these findings into a practical roadmap that we're calling it, which would address some of the current funding constraints and unlock greater finances of railways, which in itself unlock also multiple co-benefits in these low and middle income countries. So that's more or less the second pillar of our works towards COP28. We are also working together with UITP and SLOCAT and REN 21 on the energy and transport nexus white paper, which some of you may have seen from SLOCAT emails recently. And yeah, I also wanted to mention that we also put a side event application just today on the topic of the transport and energy nexus. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it from my end. I hope that was more or less clear, and yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jo-hyun. Thank you for joining us the first thing after coming back from holidays. So I'm conscious that we only have a few minutes to the hour. So please, if anyone have any questions, you can share with us now. The floor is open. Eleanor?
Yes, I had a question. Sorry, I somehow there's a problem with my screen, so I cannot see the names, but somebody who was presenting about Concito. You were,
yes.
Sorry, yeah, thank you.
Henrik, yes.
I have seen that, yeah, you mentioned all these research that you've been doing and some guidance that you published, saying that there was a link also with the international scene. And so I wanted to know, are these studies specifically about Danish cities, or I'll say, are they also looking at examples from elsewhere in the world, or are they applicable for cities elsewhere in the world? Can you tell us just a little bit more about that?
Henrik, yes. Now you're unmuted.
Thank you for the question. The work we've been doing so far has mostly been in our region, in our country. We think there is a big potential for doing similar studies elsewhere, but we cannot be completely convinced. We have compared mostly with similar countries when we have been doing comparative research, the UK and Sweden, which are neighbor countries. So most of the research we have been doing has been domestic, but we are developing a more like an international perspective, and we think there is applicability, and we think some of the frameworks that are being used here would also be relevant in many other countries and regions of the world. That's
okay. Okay, thank you. So I might reach out to you later on to explore that a little bit further.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Thank you. Marusha?
Thanks so much. Just checking that you can hear me. I think my computer is just about to take off from my desk and go somewhere. It's hyperventilating. So just two things that cross my mind. I've seen mentions to freight on the slides by TRT, presented by Marco, and Concito, presented by Henrik. I think that we are probably going to reach out to you a bit on that. Marco, we would love to know what are the countries. You were mentioning West Africa. We'd love to know a bit who those countries were. I'm saying this because you will see us in just a few weeks reaching out to partners to start a task force on freight and supply chains matters. We are entering a collaboration with the Q&A Foundation, colleagues of ours that some of you here might know, Mark Mayer, and who was formerly in the SLOCAT Secretariat, and Friedel from the GIZ, are now setting up within the Q&A Foundation their stream of work on freight and logistics. And we are going to be working together. So this is not just SLOCAT getting a grant, it's really about working together on elevating a bit the conversations on freight and logistics in the global spaces, in the intergovernmental global spaces. There's work around coming up with a manifesto. There's work around a clinic that could allow us to identify some quick wins in terms of policy and investment. And there will be work around the NDCs, in the notion that we need to support countries towards the next round of NDCs that will come out in 2025, and learn something from the so-called global stock take of the first and second rounds of NDCs that is occurring this year. So watch out the space. We will be reaching out to you, but I think it would be great, you know, to bring together partners who are working on freight. Of course, UIC, I know that this is like your bread and butter as well, you know, so just putting it in common is going to start happening soon. And it's got all eyes set on the first global conference on global supply chains in May next year, co-hosted by Barbados and UNCTAD, so the United Nations entity that deals with trade and development for countries. So, you know, more to come soon. And I was also, just to put in common with everybody, you might know it, but perhaps one of my colleagues can put in the chat. Of course, there is this tracker of NDCs that jointly with the GIZ, we nourish over the years. A service, you know, in the sense that it's open, it's open data, it's for everybody there. And indeed, it's terrific to see that now there is like the sectoral, you know, analysis of NDCs. We've been carrying out some of those, but kudos to EIC, you know, for jumping into that and doing it with the active mobility colleagues as well. We know we have a little chat tomorrow with Philip and with Ramwen from UITP and WOC21 respectively about that, but it's terrific to see that we are going into harnessing that NDC political space and technical space right now. Carl here from our team was in the Bonn sessions of UNFCCC a couple of weeks ago, and there was also a lot of discussion about potentially developing a technical annex to support the elaboration of the next round of NDCs. So that will be as well another round of, I think, not political opportunity, but actually technical opportunity for us to support countries in that. So more to come. Thank you. And thanks really for this impressive exchange. Thanks a lot. I'm just going to bring it back to Alice for closing.
Thank you, Marusha. With this, I'm very pleased to wrap up the session today. And thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights. Don't limit this exchange in this hour on Zoom. Reach out to each other. And if we encourage our speakers, we can share information with the group follow up. We will also organize today's materials and share with through the Partnership in Action email update. And we will record them on a Trello board that are both exclusively accessible to our partners. So for now, goodbye, and wishing you a good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much.
A good one. Take care.
Thanks. Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah, good night to Sam, indeed. It's good night already for many in the call.
Goodbye.
Bye.